Hello and welcome back again to this episode of TF.
It's my the free one.
Damn it! I thought that if Alice wasn't here, you wouldn't
I can't be beaten that easily, Riley. You know.
I had you not doing it for about a month by not saying what kind of episode it was, and
now I'm on to you.
Yeah, well, this is just okay. So what happened is I had a high-walled castle, right? Maybe I don't know. I'm just gonna pick a random place.
Bailey.
Well, yeah, maybe I'll pick a random place, like I don't know, Wallachia, for example, or the plains of Hungary, right? A high-walled castle, fortifications made of stone, designed to keep out a primarily, horse riding, sort of enemy.
I don't realize that was an anti-Magyar podcast. I'm out of here.
And you, Milo, you have rolled up, with a bombard, and so now, in order to stop my lands from falling to, the Ottomans, I'm going to need to design some kind of a kind of star fort structure that's going to be, more sloping walls that will keep you from doing that thing that really annoys me every week.
So you probably got theories that'll withstand a cavalry attack, but if someone were to come at you with a large siege weapon, like a cannon or even a large battering ram, it's really no good.
And with the door-to-door
Hungarian baz there,
door-to-door dodgy castle repairman, my mood has been repaired.
Conservatory put on the back of my castle.
Yeah,
by some guys who came to my door.
Yeah, you can't have that. Can't have that, mate. It's can't have a keep that close to the wall. It's not in planning.
It's not regs.
No, it is myself, Milo, and Hussein, and we are joined. Delighted to be joined by, I believe, a third or fourth time returning guest. It is Mattie, only in New York, Lubchansky. Mattie, how's it going?
I'm pretty good. I'm just thinking about now a Pebble Dash keep and smiling politely to myself.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, it's interesting is that Barrett military engineers actually made many thousands of star forts and created a whole generation of Yorkists.
Yeah, Barrett Homes actually make the 50 cal as well. It's the same guys. Different division.
Our military histories are getting all screwed up here. But we've got a few things for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about...
they're all bad. They're all just bad stuff. I just want to give a heads up. But it's none of it's good. All of it is just bad stuff.
I thought I was coming on to talk about good stuff only.
Yes, Trash Future. Well, Trash Future, the podcast
like
about
medieval conservatory.
Trash Future, the show about how things are good, and we're going to talk about some good stuff.
I thought I was just going to listen to an hour of Milo doing Siegecraft Baz. That's what I was.
Yeah, it's an ironic name. It's a show about good things from the past. Like the Pebble Dash medieval castle.
Or some kind of Genoese military engineer showing up in Istanbul being like, I could build you a bombard for less than half of what you get it down the shop.
That's right, yeah. 20% off of his cash in hand.
So we've got a lot, but one thing I want to talk about sort of right off the gate is recent events in New York. Mattie, this is something we've been talking about a bit, but it appears as though deciding to have a kind of sworn brotherhood of Staten Island guys with enough I'd say enough small arms to sustain the Donbass for 2 months was not enough to stop a recent mass shooting on the New York subway. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's fair because they're also New Jersey and Long Island guys.
Oh yeah,
yeah, because Staten Island is at least in the city technically. Yeah, I mean, so if you had seen, there was a shooting in Brooklyn at a subway station, and then the guy was found about 24 hours later, and it was only because he had left his credit card at the scene, like Zorro.
Yeah, and they found my calling card. It is Chase Bank.
And they only found him 24 hours later because he left his credit card at the scene, so they got his name, and then he called in a tip against himself at the McDonald's in the East Village.
Seventh-dimensional chess.
Yeah, and then a guy that was working at installing a security camera at a bodega, I believe, then just saw him walking around and called the cops. Like literally waved them over, like there he is. Meanwhile, the cops were
You know that new terrorist you've been looking for? Well, listen to this.
Like literally just some guy named Zach from New Jersey just did that. And then meanwhile, the cops were a block away from where this guy was, with the NYPD's vaunted anti-terrorism unit, the SRG, or Special Resource Group, which is mostly famous for beating the shit out of my friends the last 2 years. They were a block away doing anti-terrorism by throwing homeless people's tents in 2 garbage trucks a block away from where this guy was. And then, of course, the last 24 hours since then, it's Thursday now, the cops have been crowing about the detectives and how they caught them and how good the NYPD is and what a good job they did. Like they weren't like literally just groping around their own assholes for a while. Oh, great things also on the scene. The cops that were there, their radios didn't work, and they were asking random people on the scene to call 911 for them.
Wait, hang on. That's just a way that you can get mugged without realizing it. As someone comes up to you, is like, "Hey, I'm an NYPD officer. Can I use your phone to stop an ongoing manhunt?"
I love when the police run up to you and go, "Can someone call the police?"
Yeah, the cops didn't even be like, "Can I borrow your phone?" I'm sure the cops also, if you've ever seen a cop in the subway in New York City, the cops have phones because they're on them playing Candy Crush constantly, or whatever cop game they're playing. Human Crush.
Candy neutralize.
There it is.
No, you have to, citizen. You have to call the police. I have to work out which end of this gun I have to point at the guy.
Is a candy involved crushing?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Are we still not like posting like thin blue line stuff?
It's a very thin blue line. That's gossamer thin.
It's a thread.
Thin?
Sounds like you can just push right through it.
The cops did nothing at all, and also since our beautiful brain dead cop mayor has been mayor, they've been like flooding the subways with cops, and there's so many of them everywhere now, and they don't do anything. Cops don't prevent. Policing doesn't prevent crime. It just doesn't. No, we know this.
I have my own suspicions about this, but number one, I think what this shows is that, and of course, what Eric Adams is going to do is going to say, well, this shows that we need to make sure, to have cop-only subway trains, like cop-only cars, so that they're kept safe. But also, we need to take that budget. We need to go
why
ahead
do
and
these
double
shootings
it.
keep happening in the cop-only cars?
Every cop
Cops
needs
getting nervous because everyone else in there has a gun.
Every cop needs their own subway car.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. No one else can get in it.
And they need to black out the window so they can't see their reflection, because then they might
They might start barking.
Also.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's like it's what the solution to this, obviously, that is going to come out is going to be, well, we need to double the amount of cops on the subway, and the $10 billion or whatever that the NYPD gets per year. It clearly wasn't enough to have randomly the cameras at this all of the cameras in the straight line that this guy went on were all non-functional, and no one's radios were functional. I guess we need to double the budget.
There's only 10,000 cameras in the New York City subway system already, and then they're like, oh, only those 3 weren't working in the whole system. I was like, sure. I love to live in the Panopticon that doesn't work. It's like the Panopticon tower is like leaning over and the guy's asleep. But we're all still locked in
the
there.
Panopticon, like, I can't fucking see shit in here.
Well,
Stop.
I'm very surprised that you could actually see stuff in the subway. I'm like, I would have assumed that the cameras have asbestos all over them, right?
Oh yeah, I mean the condition of the subway is not great.
And also there's a big sort of activity out trying to determine the motive. And lots of people are very fucking Glenn Greenwald is like, no one wants to confront that this is black identity extremism, which was designated a terror threat by the FBI in 2018. Meanwhile, you and I have been talking about, Matty.
We love the FBI, don't we, folks?
Yeah.
The FBI watched that Bernie Mac set from Def Jam and got really scared. Why has he never had any pumpkin pie?
Why isn't he scared of any of these motherfuckers? He must be some kind of radical.
The suspect is wearing jeans with a picture of the suspect on them.
He is. If he pulls his shit out, the whole room will get dark. Repeat, the whole room will get dark.
He's threatening to pull his shit out.
No, sorry, but the discussing the motive, right? And all of the people who write for Compound, whatever that new sort of drugstore culture for you guys is, are saying, this is clearly wokeness gone awry. Meanwhile,
They'd have to call it chemist culture.
If you look at but if you actually look at what he posted like on the days before, it's a lot of very confused, rambling stuff of just like, as we were talking about, I think earlier, Mattie, right? Just repeating a lot of the stuff that you might read in, say, the New York Times, the New York Post.
I mean, this is a Daily News, New York Post reading motherfucker for sure. Yeah. Like his politics were obviously very confused. There was a lot of ranting about like too many homeless people in the subway, but then also being like, 9/11 was great, by the way. So it's very all over the place. And I think
he's a mixed bag.
Yeah, we can agree on some things. Yeah,
it's impossible to say if bad or not.
Yeah, he's a guy who's seen Taxi Driver. And thought there was some good points in it.
Yeah, it's ironic that the NYPD, by just hassling the homeless, were actually just helping this guy with his agenda.
I mean, kind of, because this is the point, right? This is sort of one of the things that I was thinking about driving at here is that what I think this talks about, right? Is that in New York, and as we'll see in the UK and sort of a lot of other places,
the Big Apple.
Yeah, the small.
Put some respect on it.
The global Big Apple, the sort of collective global Big Apple.
In the medium pear of London town.
The impressive gooseberry. There is this sense, right, that the only way to manage, that things can be managed is by inspiring fear in people and then promising a crackdown to manage that fear. And so this is why I sort of draw a comparison to like, the Coen brothers characters without a movie that tried to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, who were like, called by the FBI and be like, you should probably do this. And then, we won't stop you. And this guy, right, even if this guy wasn't necessarily put up to it by the police, but it is unusual how those cameras were off and he turned himself in and he left his credit card at the scene. Not that he was necessarily put up to it, but it's weird.
But I like the idea of the NYPD not being able to find a guy who is their stooge.
I mean, that sounds about right.
What was that guy's name again?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's lacking the major hallmarks of like of an actual like a capital O op because it went off a little. It wasn't bad enough. It wasn't stupidly done enough, and they took too long to find him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing though. It's not as though they do them on purpose. It's that they sort of find these dangerous, unbalanced people, and then just they're like, well, this guy's going to be useful, and then they get out of hand. And sometimes they stop it as in with Gretchen Whitmer, and other times they don't, like in Canada, or the Tsarnaevs. Anyway, what I sort of drive at though is that it doesn't even matter because it's what I think is clear is that like the whole energy, right? It speaks to something that's very enervated and nervous and put into a state of blind panic. Because if your governing style is to induce blind panic, that then you say you're the only one who can assuage by say expanding police budgets, cracking down on various like civil liberties, or or homeless people, or disadvantaged ethnic groups, or whatever, right? You stoke panic, and then you promise to alleviate the panic that you stoke. It's in that sense, you still put the person up to it, just not directly, right?
Yeah, the New York media has been, there's this sort of like there's this sort of like mythological the bad old days that is referring specifically to the 70s, and I think in like the late 60s, all of the 70s and some of the 80s, where there was crime was skyrocketing and like New York City went bankrupt. And there's all, and it was like a legitimately less safe place to live. But basically since the exit of Bloomberg, who was like our last, like heavily authoritarian guy, who, installed himself for an illegal third term.
Oh, cool.
Ever since he left, the New York, the local sort of like the perverts of the local media that like write the metro sections for the Daily News and the Post and the other tabloids, they've been sort of like edging. It's like the bad old days are back. They're coming back. Here's the bad old days. And it's always been this sort of thing where they're just waiting to do it. And during the pandemic, I think a lot of them got their wish because basically in America, like in a lot of places, everyone was just basically abandoned by the local, state, federal government. And it was, and now there's this very self-fulfilling, like, the city's dangerous now. So that's how, Eric Adams, like, won the primary basically, and the, and the mayoralty, because he was promising to make it safer because he's a cop, you know?
Yeah, and that's what they love to do.
And that's, you know what, oh, you sleepy there?
Oh, you got a sleepy guy?
Oh, you a little sleepy head?
No, I'm just sleep. I just feel so safe because there are
Milo-
so many cops
yeah,
now.
Milo's
so I
wearing
just
a
might
little
have
hat. He's wearing a little sleeping
Yeah.
cap, and he's
I'm
holding
going-
a lantern.
Me.
Yeah, Milo has the little candle on a little bowl
Yeah.
with a handle that he carries around to every single podcast recording.
That's right.
And
I'm
he's
always
doing
wearing
a
my night shirt.
Big stretch.
Yeah, that's correct. That's how I like to. That's how I like to live. That's how I like to be.
Yeah. So I think then, you know, we're going to get back. That's a kind of anti-politics, right? That you're talking about, Mattie. The feeling of nothing is going to happen, but you have to not act on the basis of something you want to change about the world, but you have to react to sort of basically almost impulses that are generated in you. And that's an anti-politics that we're going to get back to when we cross the Atlantic and come to Britain. But before we do that,
Do we have to go back to Britain?
yes, we do. I'm sorry, Hussein. That's where the car is going. I want to talk to you all about a little something, and I'm going to give you a hint, right? A little startup from the United Arab Emirates,
Ooh.
and it's called Kitopi. Kitopi.
Kitopi.
Kitopi. Hussein, I'm going to give you first guess.
Kitopi.
I'm giving Hussein first guess, Sleepy Milo. Come on.
Fuck, I don't know, man. Kitopi. Get back to me. Let me think.
Sorry, it was two. You're the one who usually gets it. You are the best at guessing what it actually is. So this is really stumping you.
Yeah.
Mattie, please give us a guess. Kitopi.
Yeah. I was waiting for Milo to get it wrong so I can call him Sleepy Milo. I can get it right. It's fine. Kitopi. I mean, I keep...
Oh, he's yawning again. Look at him. Oh, it's a big one, too.
I'm not very well.
Milo was COVID for the 8th time.
Yeah, I
got
actually had an
syndrome.
infection this time. It wasn't COVID.
That's right. Mattie, please.
Okay, Kitopi. And it's in the UAE.
That's right. But it's expanded around the world, and there's an outpost of it near the TF studio in London.
Oh,
England.
it's got to be really stupid if it's from the UAE.
And if it's London, and if it has a spot in London, then it must be like something property related or like landlord extraction or related.
It does involve owning a property.
Okay, it's a way to fund building your own dome that you can live in.
I wish. Unfortunately, no.
Is it like an Airbnb type thing?
No. Our mission, they say, is to satisfy the world's appetite, and SoftBank and other esteemed investors recognize the value of Kitopi's platform to the industry, and we're truly revolutionizing.
Diets?
Not diets.
Is it a platform for ghost kitchens?
Correct, Hussein. You got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm keeping my track of getting stuff.
Oh, you're back. You're back, baby. Now, again, we talked about ghost kitchens before, but as I always say, when you find a startup, there can be many in the same industry, but it's something. There's going to be something about it, something that sort of tickles your fancy. And
there are many like it, but this one is mine.
yeah, so they say, and then this one, no, SoftBank has invested hundreds of millions of dollars of the
So
Kazakh,
you know it's good.
of the Kazakh government's money.
That money could have
Awesome.
gone to hockey stadiums, but instead it's going to the first kitchen where you can have actual ghost meat.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ghost Kitchen where they do horse meat.
I think the Kazakhs pulled out a vision
Yeah.
fund too. Ignore me.
You need a fucking gigantic saucepan to make horse stew. I'll tell you that.
And such small portions. So, SoftBank and other esteemed investors recognizing the value of Kitopi's platform to the food and beverage industry and how we're truly revolutionizing the way people access food. So it's valued at like well over $1 billion.
Cool.
It's
Aren't they all?
Yeah, exactly. Like who cares about unicorns now? Like every single one is funded at over $1 billion. Like out of some metaverse avatar customization company that's like 3 guys in a basement's valued over $1 billion. You don't even need an office anymore.
It's awesome.
So
the valve on the money tap is just broken.
yeah, that's right. Well, it's like the money tap is broken, but then there's money water coming out of the walls and damaging everything.
Die Geldvalve ist kaputt.
So one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is I spent quite a while today trying to find out what makes them a tech company. I still barely know, but there are a few things I was able to find out. So,
is it that they do it on the computer?
That's a big part of it, yeah.
I think so. Well, you're on our website, aren't you? Doesn't that give you a clue?
What makes our platform so unique? We've developed an in-house suite of applications known as our Smart Kitchen Operating System, or SCOS.
What was the best they could do? SCOS?
SCOS.
SCOS.
I hate it when you're at Formal Hall and you get scossed.
Thank you very much, Milo.
Just for Riley, that one.
Lovely. Well, I scoss anyone who can't answer this next question. It's not really a question. It's more I'm going to say something and you react to it. It's the format of the show. Everyone knows.
Yeah.
The custom
no
built.
one mention any woman who's not the Queen or the Virgin Mary.
The custom built technology optimizes all aspects of kitchen operations in real time to maximize efficiency and increase utilization. And again, like, I don't know, you can't just. You wouldn't be able to go order food from a Kitopi and be like, ooh, delicious. I love that Kitopi patented crunch. It would be like, ooh, I love getting, burger cunt or whatever,
Exactly,
as Alice
yeah.
often said.
You wouldn't download your burger cunt, would you?
Well,
no, you wouldn't.
well, maybe you wouldn't. So like, you can't just like, go.
So it's like Deliveroo. It's a platform that facilitates like a consumer and a restaurant, or in this case, a dark kitchen. It's not like a restaurant in and of it, or a dark kitchen in and of itself.
Yeah, like
It's a middleman.
You can get a Nathan's Famous hot dog in the UAE because of this tech company. Is it going to be made by the people that make a Nathan's Famous hot dog? No. It's going to be made out of the same stuff? Almost certainly not.
The online GIC, where you can either get a Nathan's Famous hot dog or a burger cunt, depending on your preference.
Thank you,
What's
Milo.
important for the Nathan's dog is the barding on it, right? You want to have the right sort of jacket.
And so
It says Nathan's on it.
So they say our state-of-the-art smart kitchens are the solution you need to scale in just 14 days. And they talk about all this. So I actually went through old back issues of Entrepreneur Dubai magazine.
Oh, wow. Why did you have those? Stacked up next to his toilet, just like, back to the old faithful. I promised I never would. Just as I'm getting out, they pull me back in.
Here I am, just licking a finger and turning a page to open up Entrepreneur Dubai, June 2021.
There's an alternate history where we're all sat around in full Arab dress, eating dates and baklava, and just talking about how great all of these UAE companies are.
We'd get paid a lot.
Podcast funded $8 million by the UAE government.
Sure,
Yeah.
good, done.
Yeah, done.
Fine. Send me a Fendi belt if you agree.
Yeah, that's right.
So no, I figure. So I have a little bit of it, right? I actually found something. The solution focuses on, this might surprise you, delivering a great customer experience across multiple brands.
Yeah. It all
So
makes sense.
it's not just a kitchen with a website. It focuses on delivering a great customer experience across multiple brands.
Cool. No one's ever done that before.
So they say basically, well, no, what we do is we use data science to predict when drivers will arrive, how long an item will take to cook, and then auto-sequence the items to cook first, thereby enhancing speed.
Boop, beep, boop, 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 boop. We have a big computer. Boop, 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 boop. And we put the food in the computer, and it goes beep, 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 and it makes it more efficient. Don't ask us how it works. Don't. I've told you before, we don't know. It's magic.
Our proprietary hamburgulator that we punch cards into.
Beep, beep, boop, boop, beep, 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 beep. Is your burger.
Thank you, Milo.
It was made by a robot.
In the most generous possible assessment, right? Because usually whenever someone says we use some AI secret sauce and it massively increases our efficiency or whatever, generally speaking, what they're really doing is just pushing their workers harder. And then
using the proprietary burgulator.
of course, the hamburgulator, which is just
It's a mechanical
goad.
Turk. It's just a guy in there
Yeah, that's right.
cycling.
All these mechanical Turks, I wish they'd get out of Hamburg.
But one of the things that I sort of took away from this is if you take it at its word and say, yes, actually, it does have all of this data and AI secret sauce that everyone always claims to have, and et cetera, then what they're really doing is the innovation here is to just mechanize the people working in the kitchen more to make them more like machines. And in a sense, it is taking the Amazon model, It's not just taking the ghost kitchen model started by, you remember those two girls, Jeannie and Eki.
Oh, fuck, yes.
Yeah.
Yes!
Disco Biscuit.
Yeah, then their friend Disco Biscuit, yeah.
And
the dog's called Jessica, but the mum's called Disco Biscuit.
Yeah, and their friend, Ket Key Bump.
Yeah, Ketty.
Ketty Key Bumpington.
Ketty Key hyphen bump. But it's like K-E-Y-E.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
CAIUS hyphen bump with an E.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. Right. Very good. We got there in the end, folks. Mm-hmm. Right, but what's happening, right, is they're just taking a model where they have a kitchen that doesn't have
Avaline Coke.
Oh, posh names are fun. So what those two, I can't remember their last name. Newton, I think. Disco Biscuit Newton.
Disco Biscuit Newton, that's right.
Yeah, they took their model was for that conversion of ghost kitchens is they would just say, what if we just had a kitchen and instead of orders coming in from servers or people eating outside, it's literally just for Deliveroo. And that was like the main innovation. And
they've invented a takeaway.
Exactly. But they've invented a takeaway that's like a secret one.
Yeah.
Like a stealth takeaway that only Deliveroo riders know about, like a Fight Club.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Whereas Kitopi, what they're saying is, no, we're going to take it one step further. We're going to make this more like Amazon, and we are going to use AI data secret sauce to yes, thank you, Milo. I actually
that's just what goes on in my head whenever they say this bullshit.
I think that person named that actually went to a Charterhouse.
Yeah.
Are you going to beep beep boop boop beep beep beep's party later this summer?
Yeah, her parents were really chill. They've gone to the Seychelles for the winter. They've just let her have the house.
This is a joke's just for us. I was saying, right, they've taken this model and they have made it into Amazon, basically. They've taken that a step further in the kind of selecting a big bunch of people and then just basically mechanizing them by making a computer their boss. And they talk about, right, they don't just monitor, like, who's preparing what meal using, the big data secret sauce, but they're also constantly spying on everybody in the kitchen. And then once again, they say, beep, boop, boop, beep. They say, this tech, they say, could help ensure our colleagues wash their hands.
It's a bad use of the computer.
They say, this technology could help ensure our colleagues were washing their hands for 20 seconds, wearing their mask correctly, and so on. If an anomaly was identified, we'd be able to rectify it immediately. So basically, you wash your hands for 15 seconds, and it's like, citizen, go back to the sink.
Rest assured, any of our kitchen staff who don't wash their hands for at least 20 seconds are executed immediately.
I mean, as long as we're keeping anomalies out of my food, I'm happy.
The computer, shedding a tear as it, pulls out a revolver and puts it to your temple. Beep, beep, boop, beep, 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 boop. Beep, 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 boop, beep, beep.
Hold on, I speak computer, guys. He's saying, I'm very sorry. I don't want to do this.
I can't lose this job.
My wife
I already got fired from Boston Asimo.
And they so basically, imagine working in a kitchen. It's covered in CCTV cameras, and there is a screen. There's a computer that is monitoring everything you do, predicting all the work you're going to do, and you have no idea why you're doing what you're doing. You just know you have to pick up the rice and put it over here. You have to chop half of this carrot, and then you have to go wash your hands for 23 seconds, and then it's so disorienting. Right? To not have any connection to the thing that you're making other than just being a piece of a machine that they haven't been able to automate yet and are controlling as tightly as they can with these kinds of what are essentially surveillance technologies. That's what, as far as I can tell, the Smart Kitchen operating system is it is a device to surveil and further control and de-skill the tasks of a kitchen worker.
It's also just insane. They're developing the system from the movie Equilibrium to make nachos. This is never going to be an efficient way of doing this. It's deranged. We work to the rhythm of the hamburgulator. We do not question its will. It is beyond our ken.
So, Mattie, Hussein, what do you two think of this development? And we'll move on.
I'm excited for when my career falls through and I have to go work in food service or something, that I can become a high priest of the hamburgulator to divine its will.
There used to be a famous cartoonist called Mattie Lubchansky. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
I'm now a high priestess of the Hamburgulator.
You know what you're describing? You're describing the game Paranoia, but set in a kitchen. Hussein, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. So it's just like, what else can you say? I just think it's very, it's just very, well, all I can really say is that this is such a typical thing to kind of come out of the UAE, in the sense of like, and like the only immediate thing I kind of think is like the UAE is basically filled with like fast food places anyway. And like the fact that you can sort of get it anywhere, and like crucially, like you already pay delivery and like kitchen stuff like very little to do so. Like the fact that it's kind of diminishing even more. I don't know. It's all just like very fucking dystopian. I don't like. It's just genuinely one of those things. It's not because I think it's like kind of gross compared to other startups we've done, but it's more, oh, okay, like yeah, inevitably this is going to be like the next inevitable thing. Because like, if you didn't think that ghost kitchens were dystopic enough, then, and I guess, I don't know, as like a final thing also, like it's just kind of this, and I wonder what you think about this, about like the idea that you kind of have to kind of keep on kind of creating these types of, not even tech companies, but just like different ways of doing mass surveillance, right? There's no sort of finishing point until you have like complete control over, or like, well, it doesn't finish until like you can basically replace the humans with robots, but until then, like you kind of just keep creating stuff to put them under more and more control in like a precarious climate where like all the smart money like heads towards surveillance tech.
Well, I mean, without the sort of direct reference to surveillance, I mean, you could just transpose exactly what you said onto Marx talking about the steam loom, and you sort of get the same trajectory. Like once you finish the spinning Jenny, Kitopia becomes inevitable.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that this is sort of like the long-term sort of mechanization of fast food work. Specifically, if you go back to like McDonald's and the way that they started doing things, was they sort of did the assembly line process, and they try to mechanize and sort of automate people's work as best they could within that system. And right, this is like the long-term sort of goal of manufacturing work, labor, and fast food and all this stuff. But I think it's interesting that the technology to actually automate it is not getting better. All they're just doing is adding cameras all the time and more people to yell at you. And they've just automated the manager and not the work. And now you just have this like flesh robot that's a person, but they're trapped now in this horrible process.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? The companies that have done these sorts of efficiency improvements effectively are the ones that have done the unsexy ones. Like the reason why McDonald's is really efficient is because they've made the process of making any McDonald's meal incredibly simple, so you can get anyone to do it. Like everyone has a simple task that they do over and over again. It's not that they have like loads of surveillance or like the Hamburgulator, which coordinates all of this. No, the reason why it works is because their system is really fucking simple and it's like impossible to fuck it up. That's actually how you get efficiency.
They actually still do have tons of surveillance, right? Like maybe not like AI enabled cameras, but there is absolutely they do absolutely have like, and more recently, like with an algorithmic manager sense, but even before, right? One of the key things about say a task that is broken down and standardized that much is that it's easy to surveil.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying McDonald's are good. I'm just saying that McDonald's, being like an older company that isn't run by like a bunch of like completely addled people on like their 19th date of the afternoon who are just like, I don't know, more cameras than the Hamburgulator. Like they're just like, they've been running a fucking business for like 70 years and they're like, this is how you run a production line. It's like what I love about all these like so-called tech companies is that they love being like, we are here to innovate. We are going to ignore all of the best practices that have been developed over the last like 200 years of industrialization and presume that this insane thing we've come up with is the solution to all of that. It's a bit like the way libertarians always end up reinventing the government by accident. Like these companies don't do, then in the end we had to, break things down into stages and
they just reinvent serfdom and getting yelled at. It seems to be the
exactly.
I'd love to like own the Web3 DAO that reinvents yelling on the blockchain.
It turned out that the algorithm couldn't really successfully predict what the demand would be, so we just had to go back to a kind of statistical confidence interval.
I mean, that's sort of what it is. That is what AI is. It's just a regression.
Cool.
It's just a sufficiently complex one that repeats and repeats and repeats.
Well, and
I
it
thought it
goes
was a-
beep, 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 beep,
Yeah, it
beep.
sure does.
Yeah.
I thought it was a magical hamburger computer from space that got sent here to help us.
I want to talk about anti-politics, friends.
That sounds like, like when they would have like the intro to a kid's show, and it would be like, and it's Davy and Stu and Susan too, and the magical hamburger computer from space.
I don't think we had the same kind of kids shows.
Trash future.
Yeah, and introducing Sleepy Milo.
That's
There he
right.
is.
Well, maybe they're good friends. Sleepy Milo will come for a visit.
Yeah, that's right.
Sleepy Milo
Starring.
and Hamburgulator, my favorite show.
No, we're gonna move over to the UK.
Davy, stop fucking the hamburger. Oh yeah, you gotta stop doing that, Davy. I'm a computer from space.
Uncle Vito is in the Hamburgulator show.
I wasn't involved. No, don't report this to my probation officer. I can't go back.
Well, he learned how to talk in jail, huh? I'll let you just laugh that one out there, bud.
Pedophile Don Vito has been turned into a hamburger computer from space as a punishment.
Well, yeah, this is like the stupid version of Warhammer 40,000, where you commit a terrible crime and then you're turned into a servitor. It's just in this case, the servitor is for something really dumb.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make
Hamburger Imperium.
You can't make me be on this kid's show.
I'm gonna make you learn about Warhammer 40,000, Milo.
No, I never will.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just insert so many references into the episodes that it's your job to be on, and the knowledge is gonna stick.
What about Warhammer 40 and it's just about MILFs? There's an idea.
All right. Well,
The
I guess
Emperor turns you into a MILF.
the Emperor doesn't turn anyone. I'm just gonna go on.
The Emperor and his space MILFs.
He doesn't turn anyone into anything. He uses arcane genetic alchemy.
Okay, he's growing MILFs.
That's closer.
Yeah.
Sounds like some Harry Potter shit to me, but okay, go off.
Imagine the people in Games Workshop just painting like busty MILFs, little models.
That
would be fun.
Yeah,
Just a bunch of like virgins, just painting just like sexy older women.
They get mad at you. I remember like the reason I got turned off Warhammer was because when I got like one of those small sets when I was younger as a gift, and you got to paint them in the store, right? And some nerd got mad at me because I was painting like my kind of goblins or whatever the wrong color, and I was just very confused
Those are
by
suggested.
it because I was kind of like, do the elves have a certain color? And like, and then it's like, yeah, it's in the book, but you've got to buy the book, and it's just like, yeah, and like, so that one
The secret elf color you can only learn. It's like Scientology. Like you have to give us money, and then we'll tell you the secret goblin.
But he was like
color.
talking, he was
Warhammer
talking
is
to me
a
as if like
pyramid
I should
scheme.
know what those colors were, and I was just like, I was like 12 years old. I don't know, man. It's just, you know.
I don't know. I knew what all the colors were when I was 12.
The color that I'm painting them is that correct? God damn it! You get out.
I'm not doing Warhammer like phrenology, and that's the reason why I'm never stepping into a Warhammer shop ever again.
Fair play.
Fair enough. All right. No, I want to bring it over to Britain, and I want to talk about anti-politics. Because, let's see, if
Who's
there is
that?
one story the entire country's, at least commentariat, seems to be gripped by, it is Boris Johnson has received a small fine.
Woo! The first British Prime Minister in history to have broken the law.
That's right.
As so many of our journalists were confidently reporting.
Absolutely. No British Prime Minister has ever broken the law. I hear Ted Heath is also going to be on that show, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. Normal guy, Ted. It's also like, because, okay, you can say that and say, like, this is the only sitting Prime Minister who's ever been, like, actually caught and reprimanded by the police breaking the law. But, like, you just sound insane if you say the only sitting... Not only is Boris Johnson not the first sitting British Prime Minister to have broken the law, it's not the first time he broke the law. Like, come on. What are you talking about?
And the funny thing is, right, if you recall, you have to cast your mind back to like January, early February, where it was like when he was kind of floundering and the Daily Mail and the Sun and everything basically turned on him. Yeah, it affected Tory polling. It hasn't really recovered, or not that much. And then Labour decided, we're going to make the entire election about this. Sorry, I shouldn't really do the Starmer voice. It's not.
Well,
it's a union job.
We might be the Labour Party, But you are the Conservative Party having a party, the party that was being had by you illegally, and it's a disgrace.
I want to hear more of Riley's Corf steamer, whoever that was.
Corf steamer, yeah, it's the steam paddle boat that takes you to Corf.
That's right.
So right, it's like the damage has kind of been sort of done, what damage there was to do, but now if you look at like the covers of the Daily Mail and the Sun, the Daily Mail, I actually screenshotted it here. It says, Boris was only there for 9 minutes, Carrie less than 5. The birthday cake never left its Tupperware box. God, how fucking sad. Every time I learn a new detail
sounds like an
about this
arcane ritual. No, the cake must never leave the box.
Well, anytime I learn another detail about like all of these like mandatory fun work parties that like shook the nation, it just gets sadder and sadder and sadder. I'm casting my mind back to like the Christmas gathering where just some like civil servant in his like late 50s was just sitting there in an ill-fitting suit wearing like a little tinsel garland, and it was just so sad.
I'm so baffled by this because they could have just kind of gotten away with it if they hadn't lied. If they'd have just said like, yeah, I know it looks bad, but like all these people work together. They were like pulling like fucking 16-hour shifts with all this stuff. We just kind of thought it would be nice to let them unwind a bit. We see how bad it looks. We're sorry, whatever. It would have just gone away. Like, but because they did the whole thing like, well, what really is a party? Socrates. Can you riddle me that? And then now they've just got like all the most boring people online yelling at them constantly, being like, Boris Johnson killed my grandmother by having a party. No, Boris Johnson killed your grandmother by everything else that he did. The actually bad stuff. The corruption and the not doing anything about the stuff.
And right, and the Daily Mail goes on to say, don't they know there's a war on? Which last I heard, we weren't in.
No.
But we're not in. Oh God!
Yeah. We've been in a war for a long time, and that war is against one Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah,
that's correct. I'm gonna hand an occasional W to Private Eye on this, whose front page is Boris Johnson shaking hands with Zelensky, and they're both saying thank you for rescuing me.
Oh no! So the reason I want to talk about this, right, is like I've often said, anytime this comes up, I think it's a useful lens to think about other things in this country. It itself is not interesting, but seeing how other people react to it, seeing what other people see in it, is, I think, instructive. And I think, right, there is a desire on the part of the great and the good, the opinion formers of Britain, the people who sort of who through their voices and control of news outlets, TV, newspapers, and so on, are sort of saying, well, this is what we want to talk about, and this is in the sense of arguing about, was there rule breaking or was there not? Should you respect the prime minister or not? It all comes down essentially to demanding that you have or respect an affect. You should feel betrayed or you should feel insulted and scared. And there's very little mention of. And by the way, I'm sort of going to move on to the sort of alleged kind of liberal wing of British politics, the opposition party, and so on, sort of saying this is the only thing that is happening. This is the only thing that is happening while we, millions are plunged into food poverty. Well, like our version of Matthew Lesko is like there will be civil unrest. Our sad Matthew Lesko, our dour Matthew Lesko,
political violence advocating Matthew Lesko.
He took great pains to say he wasn't advocating it. He was just saying, I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you guys are getting like your own like weird low stakes version of the Mueller report stuff, where it's like the same sort of like, oh, we're just distracted by the stupidest shit imaginable, while the very bad leader of the country does very bad things that results in like actual material problems for actual people. And then they're just like, no, the real problem is a phone call that he made or whatever, Yeah.
And like, I think, and what I want, and the other thing, right, that's happening at the same, that was announced today, right, is that Britain has looked at Australia's refugee policy, which is essentially to put them on a fucking prison island. And again,
and come up with a stupider version, because as evil as it is, that island is near Australia. It makes logistical, if not moral, sense. Riley, would you like to tell listeners where the UK is planning to build its sort of asylum concentration camp?
Rwanda.
Awesome. Cool. We're
Wait.
going to repair the reputation of Rwanda by building a concentration camp there.
Rwanda is the crown jewel of the Red War.
That's right. They're
Awesome.
creating jobs.
I'm a simple American. I don't know anything outside of the little hole that I live in, geopolitics-wise. Are you just allowed to build something in Rwanda?
If you agree it with the dictator of Rwanda, you
Oh,
can.
sure.
Yeah, he's letting
Okay.
me build like a big conservatory.
He's an
there.
agreeable guy.
Sure.
The thing is, right? This is much
What's
of
he
what
getting
is,
out of it?
and again, there are a lot of people are saying, we did this because of Brexit, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I remind you what the fucking EU did with its offshore detention centers in Libya, right? All of these countries do it. Australia does it. The EU does it. Now we're doing it. The US is big enough that they can just put their offshore detention centers inside. They don't need to be offshore. They can just be inside. But we're all doing it. But now we have decided to do it again in a especially sort of evil and strange way. And all of Britain, and what I'm so sort of noticing here, right, is there is this mania has gripped, I think, the liberal commentariat all the way up to the leader of the Labour Party, that this thing in Rwanda, this country, this commission of what I think is essentially an historical evil by Britain, one of many, but certainly a new one, right, is a distraction. It's a distraction from the party, and I almost cannot believe. I can believe it because I understand that these people are morally depraved and also rather stupid. But I am shocked, nevertheless, to see it. I've clipped a few here.
Well, it's because, you have to understand that we're trying to get Boris Johnson for the bad thing that he did, which is having a party. And we can't afford to have any distraction of that from just regular, normal things that are bipartisan that he's doing, such as building a concentration camp in Rwanda.
And that's why I call it anti-politics, right? Because it's focusing on, if politics is sort of at base, right, the advancements of your particular interest against that of someone else, right? That's generally, I think that's a pretty broad definition. I'm sure I could be disagreed with. That's sort of fine, right? So appealing, say, to say, though, this advancement of the interests of terrified homeowners, essentially, of the advancement of a social movement that gets its legitimacy by frightening homeowners and then promising to crack down on the things it says are frightening them, right? And then and it advances its agenda against an identified group that it sees as counter to its interest. In this case, some of the poorest and most downtrodden people in the world who really have nowhere else to go because usually they'll have some connection to something here, right? And they are advancing their interests against those people. And the desire to see this purely as a distraction from a case of rule breaking that everyone can agree was an instance of rule breaking it's the only way that anti-politics and the anti-politics of the Labour Party under Starmer, liberal technocracy, the Romaniacs, whatever. I have a Romaniac on here with a quote actually, but that's the only thing they can see because they don't want to fight a political battle. They want to advance something that everyone can agree on, which is anti-politics. Because you're saying, well, actually, there are no competing interests. Everyone is aligned. All we have to do is agree that we don't want a rule-breaking prime minister in office, and then they'll replace him with, even in their wildest dreams, they replace him with a Tory that is the same fucking thing.
Well, there's nothing in the Constitution. There's nothing against the rules about building a concentration camp, Riley. So
That's right. This became the same thing as there was with Trump, right? Where it was just sir, you have to do all the evil stuff, but by filling out the correct form, actually, sir.
And that's the thing, right? It is of dubious legality in Australia and here, and that doesn't stop anyone.
I do get the impulse to a degree in the sense that, I think with this government in particular, we know that they are very receptive to media people. We know that they're very receptive. I mean, they're very receptive to certain media people, right? And they're also a government that is filled with columnists turned, or think tank guys turned columnists turned political advisors. My thinking is it's not necessarily that they are kind of doing stuff to troll people, but like their impulses are very much like, you know, there is a certain strand of like the current British government which is like doing stuff just to own the libs, and the whole kind of like right-wing media infrastructure that has deep links to government doing the same thing. So I can sort of understand like from like the liberal perspective, where again they're very sort of like plugged into media, and for them, like, you know, media and communication is like very instructive to their politics, that they see everything in this type of framework of like, oh, they're doing these types of policies because they don't like my podcast or they don't like my posts. And like, it sounds insane to say, but like, I can understand where that impulse comes from when like so much of your kind of political communication, alignment, whatever, and stuff like comes from communicating online in a particular way, if that makes sense.
Mm. Well, I think it's you see it that way as a result of being like you in particular, one sees it that way as a result of seeing, again, all politics as purely communicative. And so if you're Ian Dunt, who said sort of what you were alluding to here, who said the point of the Rwanda policy is to upset people like me.
That's right. They're doing it specifically to agree with him and to own it.
It's one of those things where Ian Dunt's so wrong he's almost right. Like, obviously what he's saying is idiotic in the sense of, like, it's eliding huge things about, like, how many people are going to die because of this policy. And it's obviously not to agree with Ian Dunt, but it is almost to do the kind of, like, direct opposite effect of that, which is to, like, please the people that hate Ian Dunt. And those people will be pleased by the fact that Ian Dunt hates it, certainly. And I think what the sort of the kind of the skeleton of a good point is in there, in the sense that none of this is really about the thing itself. It's primarily about the appearance of the thing. Like, is this actually going to be workable, having a fucking asylum processing center in Rwanda? It seems a bit pie in the sky to me, but saying you're going to do it and and at least sending a few people there and whatever makes great fucking Daily Mail reading, which I think is the primary point of it.
Well, I think that what Ian is doing is, number one, he's making himself the whole thing, where he's forgetting that he doesn't matter. None of the none of the people that the you know, terrified homeowners both fear and hate at the same time, whether that is refugees or young people or people who live in urban areas or all of these things, right? There is no sort of it goes back to thinking about the Tories as a social movement. You can't stop one bit of it. You can't say, well, it's because it actually makes sense because they're appealing to the Daily Mail people who I know who have been conditioned to hate all the people that, you know, oppose the things they oppose and so on. Rather, I think you have to see these things as working together as one machine, and that one machine essentially is created around the degradation and cutting short of human life in order to enrich. Like, it used to be enrich 7 inbred guys. You know, now it's to enrich maybe 9 guys who, you know, got rich in the 80s. I think you can't. What Dunt is doing is he's stopping that process and picking out the part where he gets mad, and he sees that as the core part of the process. But all of these, it's rather than any one part of that process being the core of it, other than just who benefits. I think you have to see the whole process as a whole, right? It's not just. And so it's very easy to say, this is a distraction, or they're just doing this for the publicity, or they're doing this for the publicity because they'll know I'll hate it, or they're doing this for the publicity because they know the Daily Mail readers will love it. Is rather you have to see these things as an interconnected system, and and the thing that it spits out is, as we say, this repeated cycles of the inducement of panic and the promise to alleviate that panic through crackdown, essentially. And then that cycle is fundamentally political, and it's achieving a political goal through political means by advancing the interests of one group against another in order to, again, advance the interest of an ultra insider clique. And I think the reaction of someone like Dunt is saying this is to piss me off is looking through a little pinhole at one part of that process and sort of deciding that's the process. Much like someone like Mike Galsworthy, another fucking brain genius from 2016 and won't go the fuck away. He says, frustrating though the Rwanda story is, keep writing to your MP about partygate / lawbreaking, which is that this core process of the political purposes of not just the Tory party, but the British state in general, is somehow a distraction from a random thing from the news a couple months ago.
I could have some sympathy with this if I thought it was in any way strategic. Like, if there were a bunch of people who were like, yeah, this thing is really bad, but for whatever stupid reason, this party thing is what's going to bring the government down. So we should be focusing on this because the main thing we need to do, and we can sort out the Rwanda thing if we bring the government down. There would be some logic to that, except that the absolute best case scenario, and it's still not going to happen, is that Boris Johnson gets replaced by another Tory who will then be more popular because he won't be tainted by this shit, and so will probably win the next fucking election. Strategically, it's better that Boris Johnson stays.
I wonder how much of this is also just like the kind of trap that centrists have sort of found themselves in. I don't know, trap is sort of giving them too much credit, but like, I kind of wonder whether the kind of Corbyn year, you know, for them, like their whole position is very much the integrity of like government and the parliamentary process is something that we should all be invested in from all sides of the political spectrum. And the fact that we aren't means that like Boris Johnson gets to kind of continue doing his stuff, Conservatives continue to like, you know, do all their stuff and so on. But like, it's also like a reaction to the idea that when the Corbyn years like took place, because of like the disdain towards the Corbyn administration, like towards like the Corbyn shadow government, the idea that like they should have like a transformative government or like a kind of government that does politics differently is a complete like anathema. It's something that needs to be avoided because they spent so much time convincing people that wasn't the way to go. And now they've sort of found themselves in this weird quagmire of like they can't advocate for like different politics, let alone like any politics that harks back to like the Corbyn years, even though like lots of the policies sort of like not only make sense but are kind of in some ways inevitable at some point or another, but they can't advocate for that. And they also can't advocate for like, you know, voting for the Tories because, you know, the last time they basically did that, we've ended up in this situation. So I think that they found themselves like completely boxed up because they can't really advocate for anything new. So all they've got left is like hoping that appealing to people's sense of, you know, oh, the parliamentary process is like something that is the envy of the world and we need to protect it. But like crucially, they're trying to talk to people who like, for the most part, don't believe that's true and haven't believed that's true for like a very, very, very long time.
I think that's exactly right. Right, where it's you, because the decision to fight politics with politics has essentially been excised from British electoral life, sort of as of the election of Starmer, right? Like the decision to take a political opposition.
Yeah, and it's also why, like, and it's also why Starmer, like, when Starmer's asked about it, his main thing is,
I have the quote.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you want to do the quote in the Milo voice, I won't let you.
Milo, will you please do the honors of Starmer's quote?
I think we need to see these plans for what they are: a desperate announcement by a prime minister who just wants to distract from his own law-breaking. They're extortionate and unworkable, and they're going to cost the taxpayers billions of pounds. They reflect a prime minister who has no grip, no answers, and Britain deserves better than this. Lynn.
We deserve a prime minister with a grip.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing over here too with our sort of like centrist and pundit class, and also the Democrats, is they refuse to and cannot frame these things in moral terms, despite it being fairly easy to do so. This is like a great evil they're trying to, you know, perpetrate, and it's so easy. It's right there, the moral lane, but they won't take it because they just spent the last, you know, I guess over there a longer time knifing Corbyn, and then here, you know, knifing Bernie. That they just like Hussein was saying, like, to suggest that there is a moral stance to be taken is to admit that they perhaps should not have done that. And, you know, they are partially responsible for everything being shit.
And that's where we get back to, right, the question, where I think, like, the question of, well, would going hard on the party stuff or whatever work, get the government out, etc. That's still kind of anti-politics, right? Because when you make a moral argument, it's something that's irreducible. If I make a moral argument against you, we can't debate and come to an agreement unless one of us changes our mind, right? It's kind of zero. There is some kind, what was it called? A radical negativity. It's zero sum. You know, one side has to win.
There's no way to get a compromise out of the Rwanda thing unless you suggest an anti-concentration camp under the earth. So then the neutral position is nowhere.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like carbon offset. Whenever you build a concentration camp, you just have to build an ever and reverse concentration camp on the other side of the earth.
That's right.
And then it's like you didn't build one.
So ultimately, I think that as much as, people like Dunt and Starmer and stuff like to say that this is something that's so horrible, at the same time, like we had a thing that was an alternative, not just ignore it, focus on the battle we can win, which is arguing about the rules, right? We had that. We don't have that anymore. And so what you get
Imagine how bad things would be if we did.
Yeah, and
Chilling thought.
So all you're left with is complaining how much the fucking concentration camp's going to cost.
Right, I've got more advice for Keir Starmer. Okay, right. We've tried telling him to call Boris Johnson a cunt and start menacingly fiddling with a flick knife from across the dispatch box. He didn't do that. We advised him to go out with Julia Fox. He didn't do that. Keir, you need to start making TikToks like the Walker for Colorado, the gay Democrat guy.
No!
I want Keir Starmer. Oh, look, you're complaining about the concentration camp in Rwanda. Listen, that doesn't play well with the voters, honey. For Labour to legislate, we need to actually win, okay? All right? So that vote they were going to throw away on the Greens or on Jeremy Corbyn, all right? It's no good, okay? You got to give it to us so that we can, the adults in the room, we're going to find a compromise. Okay, baby? All right, okay. So just go on over to KeirStarmer.co.uk.
So he's going to be Camp Starmer.
Camp Starmer, there we go. Which is also what he's going to call the concentration camp that he will build in a more sensible place.
And like, so any appeal, right? Any appeal to the mere technical element of it, right? To say we should be in charge of it. The inherent assumption is that because of our manifest goodness as the good party rather than the bad party, we're going to do a concentration camp that's going to be better somehow and cheaper, more importantly. But we should be allowed to run it because ultimately it's because there are bad and there's good, but it's affect. The Tories have a bad affect. They don't have a grip. We, Labour, we have a good affect and a grip. And so we should be allowed to do the things that we all agree on. And so, I mean, this is why I say, right, like, if the people who fought to make sure that the other moral side of this stayed out of Downing Street in 2019, they have, by insisting that the only thing that could oppose this extremely strong, vicious, right-wing reactionary politics embodied by the Tory party now, right? They ensured that the only weapon that could be fought against it is anti-politics. You're essentially, it's like you're being sent into the Colosseum with a wooden sword to die. Anti-politics is not a good weapon. I've never seen it actually fucking win.
Actually, Titus the Gaul, there's a no kicking rule in the college. So first of all, can I just? It's the Emperor seeing this because that's against the rules. There would be no kicking of sand into the eyes. Look, you've cut my arm off, but I was talking. I wasn't ready, so stick it back on. Right, we'll do it. We're going to do this properly. Okay, the fight doesn't begin until both competitors are ready.
Sorry, Matty, please go.
I was going to say, what about the old saying, it's Starmerism or barbarism, is what everyone's always saying,
That's right.
Those are the two
I love
options.
that saying.
That's right.
It's one of my favorite sayings.
I'm always saying it.
Anyway, I think that's well enough for today. We've had some laughs. I got my own relaxation vein out.
Oh, yeah, nice.
I've had a haircut.
Oh, yeah. Lovely stuff.
It's much shorter than usual.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm also facing what some are calling the strongman's dilemma, where my really nice pants no longer fit properly.
Storm man's dilemma. Yeah, you made your dick too big for going to the gym.
You are truly, look, your body is changing and is preparing for the summer of Morbius. And
that's right. I'm M to M, male to Morbius.
Yeah, Riley's been getting those synthol injections in his penis. He's like that German guy. Yeah,
well,
it's
make
huge.
the pants fit again if you've lost too much weight.
Right. That's absolutely right. Anyway, so Matty, I want to say thank you very much for coming on and hanging out with us today. It has been very nice to talk to you.
It's always great.
And Matty, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Oh, sure. Let's see. Right now, you could back me on Patreon if you want to read some comics early. Just at patreon.com/Lubchansky. And in about 4 or 5 months, if you see me relentlessly plugging a book pre-order, please do pre-order that book.
Mattie, will any of these comics feature people living in a futuristic wasteland having oddly relevant conversations based on the news of the day?
Riley, I see how you're teeing me up here, but the answer is no.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate it.
Will any of them feature Pebble-Medieval Castle?
It's a graphic novel. It does take place in the future, and people are having relevant conversations, but it's not like political cartoons.
Well, fair enough. Well, I'll
Riley,
be continuing to read those anyway.
Yeah. Also, shows.
Oh, the plugs! The plug section!
The plugs! It's the plugs!
Jerry
TF Live
Seinfeld,
show.
is that you?
I regret, I know I say this every time, I regret showing you Seinfeld.
Every time I'm doing the plugs, I'm thinking, who are these for? Right, so the TF Live show, 20th of April. There may still be tickets.
You can come hear him do that voice for like an hour.
You could, don't though. There is the fucking. I have a rehearsal of Pindos before I film it on the 26th of April, and then the filming itself is on the 1st of May. Tickets for that on my website. There's also the Britanology and Johannes Vonk and the Clogheads live show on the 3rd of May. That might be sold out by now because the tickets for that are very limited. And then 17th of May, I'm in Brighton doing my new show, Voicemail at Comedia. Tickets to that also on my website. All this will be in the description. Come along!
Hussein, as ever, where can people find you in real life?
Don't. You can't find me. No, you can find me. You can find me in like the kind of like backwaters of South London, where I'm arguing with a guy with a horse. But you
Yeah,
can follow
Dave
me.
Courtney's friend's birthday party.
Oh, I before we sign off, I need to talk about that poster. Where it's
so
just,
good.
It's Dave Courtney's advertising his friend Brendan's birthday party.
Yeah, Brendan O'Neill. Yeah,
And there's just it's like a pen and pixel poster where he's just got a bunch of random clip art on it. He's got everything is glowing.
he's got Tyson Fury and the guy Tyson Fury's fighting.
It heavily implies that they're going to be there, but then it's
Yeah.
like, no, you're just going to be watching it on a
the big screen.
in Dave Courtney's house.
Yeah, in his hot tub.
And then
I'm gonna go.
then
Yeah.
the background of the poster behind just a sort of 50% transparency picture of his friend, right, is just Dave Courtney's giant head.
So good.
Can we make that the episode art for this episode?
I
Yeah.
think we can.
I think it's
Okay,
great. I think it's great. I missed Dave Courtney's summer party last time. But because he doesn't live that far away from me, maybe this time round I'll drop by and see what it's like in the castle.
Is the party? Are you his friend? Is the party for you?
It's for everyone.
Oh, wow.
He has parties and he just does open invitation like a teenager on Facebook in 2010.
Yeah, it's like open invite.
Yeah.
All right. I'm out. It was lovely to see you all. Don't forget, there is a Patreon, $5 a month. You get a second episode every week. It's ad free.
It's not the free one.
It's ad free, like all the other episodes.
Yeah.
So check that out, and we'll see you there. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.